Hello!
Hey, family. Oh, I miss your faces.
Ah.
How are you all, though? What have you been up to?
Trying to stay fit. It's really hard when you bash into everything you have. Oh, so frustrating. But yeah, staying fit, namasteing, yogaing, all of that kind of stuff.
Love it.
Nice.
I'm loving this little backdrop that you've got, Gaia, with the cushions, and yeah, you're looking very glam.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, that's so nice.
That's great. I love it. Super.
I love your fringe. It's
Yeah.
so nice. No.
Is this a new fringe? Did you do the quarantine fringe challenge, or is this like yeah?
It's not a challenge. I just wanted to do it. I did it, and I regretted it.
It looks good.
1 second later, so it's gonna grow. But it's fine. I don't really care.
I think it looks nice. It suits you.
I like it.
That's okay.
You're like, oh, thank you.
No. I appreciate you're nice.
For now.
Yes.
Love it. I put out a thing for people to submit questions in case they wanted to throw us some stuff. And there's so many people have sent me like a huge list of things. So maybe I might just throw you some, and it might like see where we go with it.
Uh-huh.
Let me just find it. Okay, so this first one is for you guys. What interests you about dance, science, or technology? And did you ever think you'd go into working with dance science as a kind of art form?
I could say definitely not. I was not expecting it. Science was like my worst subject at school. So like, you know, it was kind of strange, like then the idea of like working with you and with these ideas, but actually like there are so many like parallels and links between dance and science that actually for me it was a much more fluid and easy way in than I ever imagined, considering how terrible I was at school. It kind of gave me new life for sort of, and a new interest actually in it.
Nice.
I don't know.
Yeah, and maybe also it didn't feel too separate when we got into the room. I think like prior to starting the R&D we did last year, I was a bit nervous because I was like, I am really not clued up probably on the scientific kind of jargon we're going to use maybe. But then when we got into the studio, it didn't really feel like there was much separation. Like the creativity and the words and the way we were working, it almost felt like we were playing with something that wasn't as, maybe as what Cammie's saying, is like scary as science in school, because I was never good at science in school. It was always something I felt quite alien to like me. So yeah, it was quite refreshing when we got to work together on it, because it felt quite like it was meant to be together. Didn't seem too but I never expected to work in that way. I'm the same as Cammie. Yeah, never expected it.
Yeah, it's just another way in. It translates really well, as you both said, and yeah, it's just a different way to create movement, and it's anchored to something that's real as well, which feels quite nice to explore and to learn about. But it's not a lesson. It just makes sense in the process.
Yeah, totally. I feel you. There's another question that is one was directed to me, which is kind of, I'm going to lead on to it because it's really kind of on the topic that we're discussing. And it's just, how do you translate or transform scientific principles into movement concepts? And I think actually it's kind of literally, as you're saying, I think a lot of the language in a way is kind of borrowed and it's kind of inherently used in both spaces. I think the kind of secret mission for me, I suppose, is to try and make people see that science actually is a creative subject rather than a wholly academic one, and kind of we change the perception of it, and vice versa with arts or dance as well, that it's not just a creative subject, but it can also be really academic as well. So I kind of find that there's a lot of transitioning of language in both areas, whether we use kind of principles of vibration or things that relate to like dynamic qualities, for example, or in some cases, I think if there's not a direct translation and we kind of have to make something that's an equivalent of, and understanding that actually sometimes we might not be wholly illustrating the scientific concept, and in other cases we might be supporting the research. So it kind of depends on the relationship, I think, with the science that's affected, I think, how I work anyway. This one, I love this one because it's like you can be really mean and honest. For the dancers, how's it been working with Jack compared to any of the other artists that you've worked with? I'll just like mute myself now. You can be, I'll just leave. Although Gaia, like, we've worked together for like what feels like decades. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, the worst 6 years of my life.
So mean, so mean.
Yes, I know. No, it's great. It's I think there's a clarity to the way you introduce new subjects and tasks, and an openness to just see what we come up with and then work together. It's very collaborative, so it's really great, but there is also clear direction within it. Sometimes collaboration gets really messy. So you're clearly directing, but from the same level, it feels. So it's great.
Oh, thanks, Gaia. You're just so kind. I'll pay you that 50 quid later.
No, I think it's true though. I think that you, like, I was so like, you know, I feel like I kind of came into this with my eyes a bit closed. Like, you know, I'd not sort of worked with you before, and I had such a great time. It was like honestly the best week. I mean, it was a really short week, and I think it's that thing of like the flexibility. So even just on a human level, like the way that you like work with each individual dancer, and you know the time and the space you give us, like when you feel okay, like let's just leave the room a bit, or you know, I think there's a lot to be said for sort of not flogging a dead horse, and I think you get a lot more done. And I learned a lot in that week about, you know, you don't have to kind of like burn yourself to the ground to kind of create good things, and like that's something that I really took with me, because you know I think that we lose sight of that a lot. So that was a great one. Thanks.
Pleasure.
I'll do it again.
Just basically my excuse to just basically have more time for tea and biscuits in rehearsal when we should be in the studio.
I think I got so fat that week from just all the cake and tea and like lounging. Obviously, we did some very productive work too.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, I'll add what I agree with everything that's all been said. Anyway, but I'll try and add something new. But I was thinking, so obviously when you said meet up and chat, I was like, oh, I'm gonna like think about that week, because it feels like ages ago, but also not that long ago. I don't know how people are feeling with. The world seems like a very different world, but that also doesn't seem that long ago, which is quite funny. And I was thinking back to that week, and often after I've done an R&D process, I take some time to reflect on it and think about how I felt in it. And sometimes things can come up, but the only emotion I had after like finishing that lovely week was that I just felt really happy and really content and very cared for, and very kind of in a really safe, lovely environment where people. Like I felt like I made new friends. It was really lovely. Like, you know, I was like, oh, like what a great week I just had. I love my job. And I think
Nice.
so. And I think like because Jack, you're so passionate about what you do and what you're interested in and where your kind of eye sits with work and dance, it felt really easy to work in that environment, because it wasn't like we were like trying to drag any kind of ideas or passion. It just felt like it just ran, and that meant that we could have those times to like chat and just kind of get to know each other, but then work really hard and get really hot and sweaty, get really into it, and then like talk to the lighting people. You know, it was really nice to have that kind of drive all the way, but it didn't feel like we've got to get this done. It felt like I'm just really driven. Are you really driven? Let's just do it. And And I love that feeling. So when we finished, I was like, oh my God, that was such a quick week. Like,
yeah, totally.
it
I
just
felt the
went,
same
and
as
that's,
well. Yeah, totally
yeah.
flew. I think like that sort of process, I think, just totally relies on everybody's generosity in a room. And I think the wonderful thing as well coming out of that for me that week and sort of reflecting was just how everybody contributed and had voice in that space, and like takes some as well for you guys to come forwards and in a process and sort of vocalize and say, you know, I think this is a bit pants, maybe we should look at it like this. And just having the space to kind of invite that, I think, is a really important thing. There's a question here actually for myself and for Gaia specifically. It's kind of links to this actually, so I'll ask it now. So it's, how have you found the process from working together to then working with Cami and Daisy? Has it been easier, harder, or has there been anything that you've preferred?
I think it made a lot of sense and it's been great. When we finished our first week in June, it felt it needed something else to come in, and specifically someone else. So it made a lot of sense to add, and what an add, you know, you two are great to work with. And I felt we found each other, even if we are quite different, really quickly, and it was really a great week.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of think actually, and yeah, of course, for people that didn't know, that me and you had a week together developing some early stuff in June before these guys came on board in November. And I agree with you. I kind of feel like we started to unearth something in June. We kind of started to get into a language or a thought process. But yeah, it got to the end of that week and we almost got to the point where we felt like we couldn't develop the concept further unless we have more bodies. And I think the interesting thing for me was seeing how the three of you came together in a space to work on one thing. And the fact that I've never worked with all of you three in one project before like this. So there's always that kind of nervousness about, is this going to be the kind of conducive space that I'm after? But everybody brought such wonderful kind of sensibilities to the idea, and then it just sort of shot and rolled. And it was, I found it easy. I don't know whether that's the right or wrong word to say about work, but yeah, it felt very easy. Yeah,
I think it's also really nice, like, sorry, I know I wasn't part of this question, but just to add on to kind of what you were
God,
saying.
Cami.
But it's true, like, I think it does take a bit of a leap of faith to kind of like, because I don't think like me and Guy haven't worked professionally together, I don't think, and me and Daisy haven't, and I don't think you and Daisy and Gaia had either. So like between us, like it was all just a very like new experience, and I think that sometimes that can be a bit like, oh, is that going to work? And I thought it was like you said, it was so easy. Like I just felt like we all brought really different things, but like, you know, obviously like Gaia has like a massive like understanding of like your work and like your approach to your work as well. So it was kind of nice to have her there, and I felt like, you know, like, yeah, Daisy and I just really like, I don't know, slotted in. It just felt like really easy just to work all together like that. So
yeah, totally. I think it was the same reflection for Robin as well as the composer. He felt that the whole process was sort of felt quite seamless. And again, I think it goes back to that whole sort of generosity that everybody was contributing kind of equally and easily together, which was nice. This question, it's for me again. It's a hard one. This is hard. How do you craft a movement language that can integrate with scientific knowledge? Great. Can just ask me like what I eat, maybe. What's my diet for the day? I think for me, it kind of depends on the relationship or the intention with the collaboration. I think, are we there to support kind of theory or physical research? And I've done some collaborations where that whole process in the studio has then been recorded or taken into a lab, and that's developed some of the scientific thinking. And then in other cases, the job has been to kind of support an interpretation or creative kind of illustration of the work. So I think depends on the intention and the nature of the work from the outset, that if I'm there to support rehearsal in a laboratory, it's a very different process in terms of the steps taken to then incorporate the scientific concepts and language into a studio. And then if it's an artistic interpretation, let's say, or an equivalence, like I was saying earlier, that's equally valid. It's just a very different kind of routine, I think. A question for everybody, or one person in particular, if you want to take it. What was your favourite rehearsal or favourite moment from rehearsals, and why?
Oh, I do have one that immediately shot up. It was, I don't know, was it a moment or was it just a whole, you know the day where, I can't remember what day it was, there's a section we did in like this trio kind of bit where we did all the interlacing, and we were trying to figure out just one of these kind of motions of interlacing. I think we spent quite a long time on it just because we made a lot and you were like editing and just like crafting it a little bit. And I remember we were really, really focused on it. We were really trying to figure it out, and it felt like we were all there in that moment, really present. We were all trying to like kind of just concentrate all our ideas into this moment, and then it finally worked, and it was so like, yes, this is great. And I just remember feeling so achieved because we spent time on it, and we spent like such like a nice moment of like sharing ideas, and like all our voices were heard, and it was just so like organic how it happened. And I can't remember which bit it was, but I think I can't describe it very well, but it's when we like unraveled Kimmy, and then we kind of went to the floor and I picked her up, and it just kind of slotted into place. And is that achievement of being like, oh, like we really just kind of drove right into that, and we just kind of like grafted it for a bit. It's like a tiny little moment, but I think some like the whole experience was so like, there was so much that we did, but I just remember that moment of like really working, you know, like really getting to work and being like, how can we answer this question? How can we figure it out? And I really liked that little gem. Yeah.
I find those things like super satisfying when you're like really kind of trying to answer a question, and it might be a case that that's something posed on day one and you don't answer it until the end of the process, and it takes some real kind of investment and failing to then find an option that works, and sometimes space as well. I know we were kind of joking and talking about taking breaks earlier, but I think they were actually the sort of the vital key to actually be able to kind of just refresh your head and then come into it and think, actually maybe that's an option. And I think that's super satisfying. I think for me, if I reflect on the time, it was my distinct memory was before we started, and I introduced you to Robin in the lounge, and Guy had quite a particular a hello from him. But honestly, I totally forgot about that, and I got this question the other day, and I was reflecting over the week, and what I remember, it's really bad, I just don't remember any work, I just remember that. But yeah, it was great. Maybe I should explain, but...
Was it Guy, was it you, or was it Daisy? It was you. Oh, yeah. I just remember the water, didn't he?
I don't remember exactly how it happened. I just know suddenly I was showered by a full pint of cold water.
I think he had filled up something from the cooler and then kind of tripped on one of the chairs as he was like making his way over, and literally just poured his whole glass of water over you. Anyway, what a great start. Good. Another question for you guys in particular. So thinking about the different sections of material that we created, I'd like to know if your approaches change regarding different phrases or parts of the work, and how, or if you compartmentalize your thinking. So how do you organize your thinking in different sections? Do they change, or do you kind of have the same sort of focus or attention?
I'd say it's like a quality shift. So I think we did kind of work on like gears and like, you know, in terms of like a 1 or a 5 or a, you know, something like that. And I think that's kind of, for me, it's just like feeling like how much work I use to do a phrase, or how much less I use. Wow, words. You know, those things, like, I think really help like shift in this different sections. So I think it's like, as soon as it's like really easy to enter a new section with a totally different quality, and then that sort of like, it's just sort of, you compartmentalize it, I guess. This is like, I would always use like textures in my head to feel like the differences, so that you can enter them quickly, I guess. I don't know if that answers.
Great, lovely, fabulous stuff. Another question for anybody. Is there anything in particular that you're really eager to start working on once you're back in the studio?
I want to dance in the studio.
Yes.
Sound like it's kind of came out. I was like, yeah.
Yeah. It's been really interesting, I think, to try and kind of adapt to this sort of home space. And I think, like, and I know Cami as well, you've taught some stuff because I've seen some wonderful little stream classes that you delivered that have been smashing.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm finding it really tricky to kind of move from like home space and then go into the next room where it's like quiet and calm. And I've kind of hyped myself up on the adrenaline of the session, and I don't have the wind down that I would normally do from the walk home from the studio. And I'm kind of arriving into the home space, and I'm sort of realizing that actually there's such a sort of disconnect in terms of this room and the studio room, because of all the energies that it has and the kind of potential that it invites when you're in a space. So yeah, I totally hear you in terms of getting into a studio and just wanting to kind of give in that space again. I think that's, yes.
And I think just working at home, it's so exposing to your why you like to dance. It's like a really big question I've had, and it's like, obviously I love moving, but you know, I think one reason I was loving working in the studio with you guys is because of you as people and connecting with people and being in a space that was fit for movement. And like, I never really thought I was someone who was like really into just working in one space, but now I think it's just, I'm really appreciating it because we're all dealing with like being in a domestic environment. And I think I use dance as such an escapism and such a kind of a removal away from like my normal everyday life, that I'm kind of craving to be a little bit in that world. You're just lost in a world of just like debates and talking and moving and getting sweaty. And I can do that in my bedroom, but it's also my bedroom. It's like, it's not that different. It's not, and I'm here every day. And I think, yeah, going back to the question, I'm just excited to be in a space that's just like, it's dedicated to the craft, rather than I'm just trying to get through this and be in my bedroom and I can see my laundry in the corner and oh wow, my dad's walked past, hi, and I, you know, just have a space that's dedicated to this kind of mode of working. And I was watching back the video you posted, and it was so like lovely to watch of all of us, because I was like, we're just so lost in this world, and I wish I could just be in that world right now. So yeah, doing a bit of that.
Nice. Yeah, I feel you.
I think I do feel like it's very saturated at the moment, like the sort of, you know, what we're being like bombarded with, and I've been really struggling with that, like the kind of overstimulation of like all of this stuff that you could do at home, and for me none of it feels very satisfying, if I'm honest. Like, so for me like the excitement is just getting into a studio and feeling satisfied again, because I think obviously we have to like adapt our expectations as well of what we can achieve, but I think as dancers we're definitely like we want to achieve a lot. We're quite ambitious with how much we do in a day, and whether that's physical or like, you know, like lots of like admin, like whatever it is, but and I think it has a very different weight and a very different meaning when it's done from home, and it's not something that I've really enjoyed, if I'm totally honest. Like I think it's a bit that thing of the freedom of getting lost in the studio, like you were saying, Daisy. That's like something that is going to be I don't really care what it is, I just need to be back there. That's for me anyway. I think that's how I'm feeling.
Yeah, for sure. I kind of feel like this time though has really given me space to kind of reflect, pause, kind of recalibrate some of my thinking. And I think whatever that return looks like, I think I'm just going to come at it with such a different set of kind of appreciations maybe, or thoughts or motivations, because I think I've been able to invest in a different sense of myself in this time. And I think being able to then return to a space where you kind of invite the potential again, but with that kind of rewired thinking, rather than this kind of ploughing through stuff that we've got to get done, actually kind of making space to think and listen a little bit more. Yeah, I think I'm super excited to just get back into studio and just move and make and develop things, and yeah, just have a lovely time, basically.
Touch people.
Yeah. Yes. Oh,
so nice.
I know. I'm so nervous that like class is going to be some like socially distanced phased thing where we all have to stand in little boxes in studios, but I've no idea how it's going to work. But maybe we can look back on this in a year and think, see.
Yeah.
So I have another question.
Sorry, I talked over you. I was just thinking it would probably be weird touching each other's faces eventually. We just all have classes or we just touch and be like, hey.
Or with like protective gear, masks and gloves on. Maybe it's going to be like a uniform for space. So this question, it's quite a large question actually. And so I wanted to kind of maybe finish with this one because it really gave me some pause for thought. But it says, I'm interested in how you and the other dancers understand dance as an artistic practice. I'm interested in the difference between movement and dance and how you ensure that you dance rather than just move or do steps. How do you develop your kind of artistic dance? I can move every day and be very disciplined about it. I can dance in my room every day, but there's something else. I'm afraid I don't buy the thing of I love dancing, I dance, so I'm a dancer. I love dancing too. I would love to practice it more, but I'm not a dancer. I might be a thinker or a writer. I'm just not a dancer because being a dancer, just like being an academic, requires a mentality, a training that is physical, mental, emotional, and I'm interested in that. Big questions, right? I think it's really interesting to kind of consider the notion of what is movement and what is dance. How do we code that? And I think working with kind of beginners as well, you kind of have to sort of shift the focus a little bit, maybe from one to the other. So I suppose there is a separation in some sense, that maybe socially just dance is quite a loaded kind of term, that we kind of have a perception of what that is. I think there's something that's one in the same with all of it. We kind of invite possibility in that it's all kind of allowed. I suppose maybe it gets into dance when there's a particular background or experience. Maybe, I'm not sure. I really don't know. I kind of maybe value them kind of equally. But yeah, that's tough for sure. Have you guys got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would say it's like there's something about like moving makes us feel good, but then is good for us, I guess, in all sorts of different ways. But dancing is like, it's a way of the words that came to mind, I don't really have sentences to formulate them properly with, but I like an identity, like it like I am more than, like I can describe myself in so many ways when I dance. And I think there's these kind of masses of different sort of like emotions and textures and sexuality that kind of emerge through like dancing, that maybe moving doesn't have that same potential, I would say. I don't know if I've understood the question, but for me though, like that's what dancing can be.
Yeah, I hear you. There's almost like there's a depth of experience to dance, whereas movement maybe is like the first thing, it's the primary thing, and then you kind of, that's the thing to then unlock all the other stuff that you talk about in terms of being able to experience or develop an understanding of. Yeah, no, that makes sense to me for sure.
And kind of like about making choices, having space. It's like, you know, when you teach dance to people, like when I'm teaching like kids or associates, like it's all about like what are the choices you want to make, how do you want to do it, because you know you can put your arm out or you can like put your arm out, like there are ways of doing it, and like what do you want to say and how do you want to be seen. And I think you have a lot of like there's so much control and power like in the choices you make when you're dancing, I think.
I think as I'm just expanding on some of the things Carrie's saying, because it ignites little things in my head. I always think when people ask questions like that, like, I mean, the question is very long, but about like why you dance and what is dancing and things like that. Two words that come to mind are like communication. I really think that's a key one. So when I'm dancing, I feel like I'm communicating something, and it might be on like a basic level, like the over idea that I'm working on as a dancer. But I think it is rooted in identity as well. Like I'm communicating something underneath that, something that I can't say with words, because that's what dance is. If we could say it with words, we just write an essay about it. And I think dance is on that unspoken kind of gap between when we say something and when we don't. And I think that's where dance sits. And for some people, that is about communicating something, maybe a little bit unheard, and we can't quite put words on it, which is why it's hard to do the question. I'd rather just dance this question out.
This is why.
My interpretation. And then I think as well, it's the word obsession. Like, why, it's not as simple. People say, why do you like dancing? And it's not just because I love dance. I think I'm obsessed with it. Like, I have like a weird obsession with figuring out exactly what Cameron was saying, like, where do I put my arm, and where do I put it in space? And I'm not just putting it in space, I'm kind of obsessed with the discovery of that. And I think that's what, like, anybody in any field who loves what they do, it's, you are a bit weird and you have a bit of a weird obsession with it. And that's why I will spend 2 hours in my room moving, not because I just like the music and I'm dancing, it's because I'm a little bit addicted and obsessed with it. So I think, maybe that's not a good word to use, like I'm addicted, but it's like, it's like essential to what I do as a person, not because it's just easy and lovely and it gives me like endorphins. It's a weird, odd, obsession that I have. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it kind of goes with what you both said of this awareness and knowledge of the possibilities within the body. And yes, is an expression of the body. It sounds so stupid, of course it is, but it sits there. But there is a huge layering of information and of decisions and possibilities and fun within it that gets expressed, if it makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like I work in this industry because that's the mode that I'm able to learn or engage with the world, and I think it's then carrying the ability to kind of communicate, like you were saying, or express, or to then carry all of that kind of archived knowledge or information that's kind of sat in this as a vehicle to then be able to go out and engage or express. And I think maybe that's what might define for me maybe the difference in whether I'm moving or whether I'm dancing, or how do I qualify myself as a dancer, or as a mover or as a maker, because they're kind of used kind of interchangeably a lot. But yeah, it's interesting to kind of ponder on the intention and the knowledge that comes behind it. I think that's probably for me anyway what drives that. But yeah, well, there's our questions. Smashed it. Love it. What a dream.
Questions. They were really nice questions.
Right. Thank you so much for people that sent them. They were a dream. I've got 3 minutes left. The Zoom mogul in the corner is telling me that my time is running out. So yeah, maybe it's time to wrap up. It's been so nice to see you. Miss your faces. It was so nice looking through the footage and like trawling through photos, and I would kind of cast my mind back for a moment and thought, that was such a nice time. So yeah, I'm super excited to kind of get into a space with you guys again soon and motivate some making, and hopefully it won't be too long, but maybe we just start doing it like this.
Yes.
Why not? We'll be so practiced at it.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, well, thank you. Thanks for your time. Keep safe, be healthy, be well, be wonderful. Yeah, and hopefully I'll catch up with you guys again soon. Keep in touch. And for anybody that's watching this later, if you guys have any questions after it that you want to throw to me or to anybody, then absolutely just drop me a message. But yeah, thanks very much.
Amazing. Nice
Take care, guys. See you soon.
Bye.
Ciao, ciao. Bye, 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 bye.